Okay.
All right. We missed you recently. Good to have you back. Are we on? All right. I would like to speak about a certain topic, which is Noachite related, and what prompted me to bring up this subject is there is a custom, a Jewish custom, that during the summer months and weeks, every Shabbos, every Saturday afternoon, we study one chapter of a tractate called Pirkei Avos, which in the English they translated as Ethics of Our Fathers. And being that we started last week, that was the first chapter that the Jewish people would study. And then this coming Shabbos, this Saturday afternoon, will be chapter 2. In chapter 2, in the beginning of the chapter, there's a statement made. And even though officially and formally the entire Pirkei Avos is aimed at and geared for the Jew, however, I know with certainty that the part that we're going to zero in today definitely applies to all of mankind, to all of Bnei Noach, and you'll understand why I say that. So let me learn with you that piece, those two lines in Avos, chapter 2, Mishnah 1. Mishnah is the paragraph chapter, and then we have a paragraph, similar to chapter and verse. So here it's chapter and paragraph. Okay. So in part of Mishnah 1, it says as follows. Histakel, I'm reading the Hebrew, Bishloisha Dvarim. Reflect upon three things. Ve'ena tavo lidei aveira. And you will not come to sin. It's pretty much a guarantee that a person will not sin. Surely not meaningly. And what are these things? So it says, Da ma lemaila mimach. Know what is above you. Ayin roya, an eye that sees. The oizen shema'as, and an ear that hears. The chol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim. And all of your deeds are written, are recorded in the book. All right? So an individual is to contemplate, to reflect, to keep on the forefront of their mind that he is always watching and listening, and everything is recorded. There's nothing that is not seen by the Almighty and is not heard, obviously. Now, in 1982, the truth is it was really earlier, but officially, the way it's recorded in the biography, in the very brief synopsized biography about the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, in the beginning of his work called Hayom Yom, from day to day, which is like a calendar, but it's meant to be studied daily. So in the beginning, there's a biography of all of the 7 Chabad Rebbes. So in the section of 5743, which would be 1982-83, so about his accomplishments or his activities, it says there that he urges that all peoples of the world, the children of Noach, be influenced to practice the 7 Noachide laws that apply to them. So officially, the campaign began in 1982. And I stress officially because he did speak about it beforehand. But I guess in a formal setting, even though he spoke about it, I'm not actually, the truth is, I'm not really sure why it was decided that it's then and no earlier. But that's what it says. I definitely know that a year and 2 years beforehand, he spoke about it very strongly and clearly. And that was not the first time either. But officially, it's Tafshin Mem Gimel 5743, 1982. Urges enacting a moment of silence at the start of the day in schools throughout the world so that youth be aware of the divine eye that sees and ear that hears. All right? And again, he's literally using this Mishnah that we just read. That's where he's taking the eye that sees and the ear that hears from. In accordance with this, suggests signing a petition to leaders of the American people and of all other nations about the great urgency of such legislation. Okay, and also petition about the urgency of government assistance to parochial schools. Now, I remember those talks from back then. And like many things, there's some controversy, even within religious people, whether it's a good thing or not a good thing. Should we push for it? Should we not push for it? I'll give you a little bit of the background. And then I'll try to clearly explain the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach position. If I may say, he is a very proud American. And as a matter of fact, his father-in-law and predecessor, the sixth Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who passed away in 1950, January of 1950, exactly, almost to the day, exactly a year before his passing, in 1949, he became a citizen of the United States of America. And as a matter of fact, they actually passed a new law in his honor to enable him to become a citizen, because at that point, until then, it was unheard of for the representatives of the court and the legal system to come to an individual and have him register and sign and receive everything. And they did, out of honor and respect for him. And he was bound to a wheelchair. He was not walking. His health was very much deteriorated. It was very difficult to understand his speech, very, very difficult. And they came, a bunch of lawyers, a judge, and a whole delegation came and met with him. And there are pictures of this, and there's actually a video. For those days, 1949, it was quite an undertaking, very expensive. And there was a video taken of this historic event. And just, I don't know if you'll appreciate it, but just to give you an idea of how he viewed it, traditionally, many Hasidic rabbis and Hasidim in general have a special garment or garments for Shabbos and for Jewish festivals. The most noticeable is the hat. During a regular weekday, they wear a certain type of a black round brim hat. On Shabbos, they will wear what's called, I guess back in Yiddish, but back to maybe Polish or Ukrainian or Russian, a spudik or a shtreimel. It is a fur hat, and different types. One of them is wider and shorter. One of them is taller and more narrow. Different styles depending on exactly where in Europe, which Hasidic Rebbe it is. Okay. The Rebbe Rayatz had that custom as well, the sixth Rebbe. And on certain occasions, when it wasn't Shabbos and it wasn't Yom Tov, wasn't Jewish holidays, very rare occasions, he wore this special fur hat, which is very symbolic. Not a matter of, oh, it's cold, you put on a fur hat. It's not that kind of a fur hat. He wears that, and it's in honor of a very special occasion. It has to be a super special occasion, a sacred occasion. One is when he arrived to these shores, the United States, when he emigrated here during the war, 1940. The winter of 1940. So there's a famous picture of him on the boat in his cabin before he leaves. And then there's actually a video of him being wheeled off on a wheelchair onto the dock and coming. He's wearing that spudik. He's wearing it special for the occasion of arriving in the United States of America, settling here. Fast forward exactly 9 years, 9 years later, 1949, for his citizenship, he's wearing that spudik again. So it's a really big deal, and it's a very strong statement. Like, what does he need to become a citizen in 1949? What's the point? And he made a point by doing so. His son-in-law and successor, the current Rabbi, Melech HaMashiach, is also a U.S. citizen, and many times spoke about this country, the United States of America, being a kingdom of kindness, and showed tremendous appreciation for the freedom of religion that there is here. And many times praised the fact that on all of our currency, it says, in God we trust. And even explained that the word trust is stronger than the word belief. And he explained it a number of times. And you can see that he's so pleased that that's what it says on the currency. Now, having said that, in the public school system, there was a movement, and in certain states, there was a prayer in the beginning of the day in the public school system. However, there was a lot of opposition to that from different angles, from religious and non-religious people. The non-religious, understandably, they don't want any prayer. Who's telling you to pray, you know? And the religious people were afraid that it would be denominational. And I'm this religion, I'm not that religion. I pray to him, I pray this way, I pray that way. So it was modified, it was changed. And then there becomes what today is known as the moment of silence. Moment of silence that you begin each school day with whatever it is, a minute or two of absolute silence where you can reflect, meditate, pray, whatever you want to call it. And they don't even instruct you what to do because this is a public school. So every child, K through 12th grade, asks their parents. So how could you oppose to that? So even an atheist can figure out what to do during that moment of silence. Reflect, whatever. And the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach pushed for that so much. And he really, really wanted that a moment of silence should be introduced to the public school system. He says it's crucial. And everybody has to recognize and realize and believe in God. And he explained that the different worries that people have, the separation of church and state. He explained why that's not a problem, why that's not an issue. And he actually said this thing of what are you supposed to think then? And who's supposed to instruct you? So he said, just like every child brings their own lunch to school. We're not talking about that there's a hot lunch program, whatever, but every child brings their own lunch. They have a lunch bag, a lunch box, and they bring it to school. So what's their diet? What are they eating? Whatever their family, whatever the parents decide. Similarly, spiritually speaking, the parents can give the child what to think for that moment every day. Now, the reason I'm so sure that it was before 1982 is because if you recall, back in 1981, when President Ronald Reagan was shot, remember that? And he took the bullet, and then there was his bodyguards, and he was rushed off to the hospital. Do you remember that? And being the individual that he was making jokes. And as soon as Mrs. Nancy Reagan came to the house, she rushed to the hospital. So she saw him before they took him into the operating room. And he tells her, "I'm sorry, honey, I forgot to duck." And as he was being wheeled into the operating room, he said to the crowd, to the doctors and the surgeon and the nurses, he said, "I hope you're all Republicans." And now, it was a serious thing. And it took him a while to recover. A couple weeks after that was the Hebrew date of the 11th of Nisan, the birthday of the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. So we just celebrated 120 years. That was his 79th birthday. He turned 79. So there was a big gathering we call a Farbrengen. And spoke about many different topics. And spoke about the 7 Noach commandments as well. And about the importance of educating everyone, all of the children, including the ones that go to public school, educating them that there's an eye that sees, an ear that hears everything. And he explained that if you properly educate them to that point, that there's accountability, that God Almighty observes and watches everything and nothing gets by him. Nothing is overlooked. He sees and hears everything. That will impress upon the child for his entire life. And we will have a much better country, a much better world, and the crime rate will be much reduced. And then he went into explaining, he actually gave a very strong blessing for a complete and a speedy recovery to the president in his own name. And he said, on behalf of all of us, of the entire organization and the American people, everybody should really wish our president well. And he gave a very sensitive, by nature, blessing in public to the president, and wished him really that he should become completely healed from this, and so on. Long life. And he went through the details, and he said, take a look at who the individual who shot at the president, who was that? Who attempted to kill him? Who is that? It was someone who came from an upper class family. It was someone who basically had all of his material needs. The wealthy, well-to-do family. And he had everything he needed. He was not desperate for material items. He wasn't someone who was homeless, wasn't impoverished, was an upper class boy from an upper class family. Why then, and how can he do such an outrageous act of actually shooting the president? So he explained that it's a lack of education in the public school system, that there's an eye that sees and an ear that hears. And therefore, it's very important that we do whatever we possibly can to introduce it. So what he would really like is that in all the states of the United States, without exception, and for that matter, in every country in the world, whether it's a religious school or public school, that there is this beginning of the day with a prayer or a moment of silence, non-denominational, moment of silence. And to date, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that there's like something like 34 states in the United States that have it. Florida, Georgia, and they started off the day. Nowadays it's, with technology and everything, and the way the schools work, with computers and so forth. So there's an announcement made over the PA system or whatever at the beginning of the day, right away, first thing in the morning, whatever time it is, 2 minutes before 8:30 or 2 minutes before 9 o'clock, whatever the day, whatever it is, there's an announcement. Good morning, students, whatever, and we're going to start the day, another day. And this is the time for everyone to have a moment of silence. So I just wanted to share that and the importance. And anytime we have any opportunity or anything, you never know, who can influence who and how, but we should feel as part of our responsibility towards the world of promoting the 7 Noachide commandments, which is really all about the divine code, would be this, just like when it comes to any issue. So we would like to fight for the right, and the right is in accordance to the commandments and the will of God. So whether it's the issue, any of those issues which are, controversial, or they're being argued, and one side is clearly against the Torah, and one side is clearly upholding and for the Torah view. So of course we have a responsibility to see to it to do whatever we can. So a most basic and general theme is a moment of silence. And again, there were religious people, or some people that, and then you have anti-religious people that are opposing it because they claim that this is just a way to push in a prayer, and it's just step one, because really our agenda is to get the prayer in, and they said that we're not going to do. So they say, we really aren't opposed to a moment of silence, because how can you be? Because you don't want to call it a moment of prayer, so call it a moment of whatever you want to call it, meditation, whatever it is, self-evaluation, whatever you want, even if, like as I said before, an atheist. So they can't really oppose a moment of silence if you're not mentioning God or prayer or belief or religion or anything like that. So what can you oppose? But they say that, no, we know your hidden agenda, that you want to use this to be able to push in prayer, and that goes against the separation of religion and state and all that. But that's a mistake. Not so. It is very important to have a moment of silence. And yes, ideally, the person is supposed to think about God. We don't want atheism. No, but that would be the gist of it. So, it's beautiful that we have so many states that are on board, and we still have a ways to go to get the others. Questions or comments on this?
Yeah.
One second, I can
Okay,
barely hear your volume, or can we raise your volume?
Is it low?
Volume? I don't know how. I don't know what.
Is my volume low?
It's not all the way up. One second, let's try to raise your volume.
But if I
Fine.
Okay, you're as loud as it gets, I think.
Okay, can you hear me?
Very barely.
Wow. All right, so someone brought up a question in a different Noahide group, and this, what you're saying, kind of relates to that. If the Noahide laws are a faith and a belief system, when the Noahides are observing them, I mean, from what I'm gathering is this okay for us to pray as individuals? And if you start talking about the classroom silent time and stuff like that, that's kind of individual or whatever. So you're not creating what they call a pillar of worship or anything like that. However, when it comes to Noahides having a place to go and gather, is there such a thing that can be done? I mean, or do we have to go to the synagogue and only to be able to congregate and recognize our own religion? There's a little confusion about this. Do Noahides have the ability to establish their own prayer centers, their own places of study and worship?
Okay, so good point. And I think that in Brazil, I think it's Brazil, there is a large, active, successful Noachite community. And they have a rabbi, a Chabad Lubavitch rabbi, who is their spiritual leader. However, and they have their own system with their own house of worship, and they're not davening with Jews, and they're not like taking a back seat or a sideline or a front row seat in a regular minyan, in a regular Jewish setting. It's just the rabbi. And I'm not even sure if he's there for the entire time or he just comes in and speaks to them, gives a sermon, whatever it may be. But they are, I'm pretty sure, they are praying together as a community, as Noachites. And I think that that's very correct and very beautiful. So basically, my take on it is as follows. Ideally, and it's kind of unfortunate that it's not all over, it's just a few places. I know of one, and I'm sure there's several others, not too many. Ideally, there should be, whatever you want to call it, whatever would be the most correct, not just politically correct, but on all angles, like whatever, the correct thing to call this house of gathering, this house of prayer, where Noachites get together to pray to God. No religion, as Noachites, as the children of Noah, who accept the 7 Noachite commandments that were given by God through Moses at Sinai. And then they're worshiping that one and only God. And then the question is, what do they pray? So that there's even a siddur out, I believe so, but in the divine code, it goes through the various different things that a Noachite could say and what they can't say. Certain things are quite obvious that they make no sense for them to say. Other things are very clear that they could say it, no problem. And as I think we've discussed in this setting, in this class, I'm not 100% sure, I think so, and that is something which the first time I saw it, I was like blown away by it. And it's like, I think it's beyond amazing. And that is a moment. And that is in volume 26 of Lekutei Sichos. This is the edited original talks of the Rabbi Melech HaMashiach. Volume 26, this is where he has his main talk about the 7 Noachite commandments and the Jews' role in it. Starting on page 132. And I want to point out a footnote. Yes. Footnote 67 on page 141 for the record. Make a note of it. Likute Sichas.
How do you spell that?
How do you spell Likute Sichas? In Hebrew or in English?
Well, whatever way I can find it.
L-I-K. By the way, can you hear me or do I have to yell?
I can hear you.
Okay,
I hear
sorry,
you.
because I can barely hear you, so I'm yelling.
Okay.
L-I-K-K-U-T-E-I. Next word, S-I-C-H-O-S. Volume 26. Page 141. Footnote 67. Where he brings down an actual case by one of the great rabbis, known by the acronym of his name as the Chida. His name was Haim, Yosef, David, Azulai, otherwise known as the Chida, where he writes in first person about an episode in his life. And he says, it's a whole story there, how he met a certain non-Jew and had a whole discussion with him. And I told this above mentioned guy, this non-Jew, that he should tell me what he believes in. And he tells me, this is what the Chida writes, he tells me that he believes in Hashem Elokei Yisrael, in Hashem, the God of Israel. And I interrogated him, and I came to the conclusion, it appeared to me that it is so, that he was actually honest, and that is, in fact, what he believes in. And I told him, if so, every morning and evening, say the verse Shema Yisrael and fulfill the 7 commandments. And be careful, do not transgress shituf, which is the idea of a intermediary, to have to believe in God, but together with, which is a whole discussion for itself, whether non-Jews are obligated or not. So I told him, stay away from that type of belief, no shituf, but rather absolute unity of God and believe in the one and only God of Israel. And he accepted. And he said that he will not pray to anything or anyone other than Hashem, the God of Israel. So what really surprised me is that of all things, he told this guy, this non-Jew, to make the declaration and say the verse of Shema Yisrael every morning and every night. The verse itself, I would think, but who am I, implies this is for the Jew exclusively. In other words, everybody is required and obligated to believe in God. However, the Jew is obligated, it's a separate one of the 613 commandments, to believe in the unity of God, that he's absolutely one, like no other oneness. And that's why the verse states, Shema Yisrael, listen, Jew. God is our God. God is one. Because to believe in that type of a oneness is exclusively an obligation for the Jew. And that's true. So here the Chidah, this great rabbi, is telling the non-Jew, believe in the one God the same way a Jew needs to believe in him. Do not accept in any way, shape, or form shituf, this mixture of any other deities, and say this pasuk every morning and every night. That's one of the commandments, another commandment for the Jew. Every morning, a Jewish man is obligated to say the Shema, and every night. Even Jewish women are not obligated because it's a time-bound positive commandment. And here he's telling a non-Jew to say it. Therefore, that's pretty amazing. And what I want to bring out with that point is that when it comes to praying, many people, such as myself, may mistakenly think, oh, this prayer, no, that's not for a non-Jew. That's for a Jew. Not necessarily so. It says Shema Yisrael. So what? Now, having said that, let me give you an example where I may be wrong. But based on that, I think that the very famous, very powerful prayer of the Alenu, this is said at the end of every prayer, morning, afternoon, and evening. We say it at least three times a day. And on the high holidays, on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we actually say it in the middle of the Amidah, of the most serious and the highest level of prayer when we're standing at attention and we don't even move, and we say it silently. In the middle of the additional prayer called the Musaf, we say it. It's a very, very powerful prayer. And basically, the prayer is, you may be familiar with it. The prayer is thanking God for allowing us to serve him and no other, and for making us different and separating us from all the nations of the world. So one may say, okay, that's a Jew thanking God for not being a non-Jew. And I say, perhaps, no. It's anyone who chooses to properly pray to the one and only God, thanking him that he is not, that I am not a pagan, that I'm not an idolater, Jew or a Noachite. So in the Chabad Siddur, the first time the prayer appears at page 84. Okay, depending on what Siddur you use, it's in every prayer book, every Siddur, no matter what Ashkenaz, Sfarad, all the different ones, this prayer is said by all. And let me just quickly read the English. I'm reading from page 84 in the prayer book. It starts, Alenu l'shabeach l'Adon hakoil. It is incumbent upon us to praise the master of all things, to exalt the creator of all existence, that he has not made us like the nations of the world, nor caused us to be like the families of the earth, that he has not assigned us a portion like theirs, nor a lot like that of all their multitudes, for they bow to vanity and nothingness. But we bend the knee, bow down, and offer praise before the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he, who stretches forth the heavens and establishes the earth, the seat of whose glory is in the heavens above, and the abode of whose majesty is in the loftiest heights. He is our God, there is none else. Truly, he is our King, there is nothing besides him, as it is written in his Torah. And we quote, know this day, and take unto your heart, that the Lord is God, in the heavens above, and upon the earth below, there is nothing else. So over there, we're speaking about how we're not like the rest of the world, and he didn't make us like the multitudes and like the families on earth. So it could very well sound like this is a Jew praising God that I'm not a Gentile. And I say that if the Chidah could tell that non-Jew to say the Shema Yisrael every morning and every night, that a Noachite can say the Alenu and praise God that I am not like the families of the earth, or that he has not assigned us a portion like theirs, nor a lot like all their multitudes that bow to vanity and nothingness. I don't do that. You don't do that. If you're a proper Noachite, you're not bowing down to vanity and nothingness. You're bowing down to the one and only God, the God of Israel. So I would say that by all means, you can say this very powerful prayer of Alenu. So basically, there's a lot that a non-Jew can say. He doesn't have to stick to the exact text and be as rigid as the Jew does, because the Jew is, so to say, I don't want to use the word stuck, but we have a set text that was given to us about 2,000 years ago because people were not able to express themselves properly, so they made a set, clear text for everyone to follow, and then you could meditate and add whatever you want at certain points, surely in your thought. So a Noachite is not limited like that, and a Noachite can pick and choose, because it's not like you're obligated to say this page and that page or the other. And yes, getting back to what you mentioned, to pray as a community, I think that would be the ideal thing, to have a set place, a house of worship. And the challenge would be that people would ask, the world, including the Jews and non-Jews alike, would ask, house of worship, oh, what religion is that? And if, like, it's in America, they'd say, oh, are you Christian or what? And if it's in some other country, oh, are you Muslim or what? They say, no. We're praying to the God of Israel. Oh, you're Jews. No, we're not. So it'll be a little bit difficult for people to understand what it's all about. But hey, if that's the right thing to do, and that's, part of educating people, I would think that that's a great thing to do, to get a big place, build a big place, and whatever you want to call it, you have to figure out what's the right thing to call, what's the best thing to call it, because anything you say, any religion could, like, you call it the house of God. That's true. And then every religion could claim, oh, that's where I belong. And then you say, really? Then they come in there and they say, well, where's, no, we don't have any of that, but where's? No, we don't have that either. And, you don't have a holy ark with a Torah. You don't have any image. All you have is windows on high so that you can look towards the heavens and help your concentration.
The reason I ask that is because that's a big question now within the Noahide, growing Noahide community right now, because some people are saying we're not allowed to have communal prayer and all the rest of that stuff because that's only something that Jews can do. And for me, that tells me that something's not right, because that's not the way it should be in my estimation. But I want to go back to one thing. One of the things that I remember in the school prayers, because I grew up in that era, I'm one of the baby boomers. We did not like pledging our allegiance to a flag, because in my mind and in the mind of some of the people that I grew up with, that's idolatry. We pay only to our allegiance to God. That's it. That's all. There's no in between. So that was one of the reasons why a lot of us shifted from that. But at the same time, when I'm learning the stuff about the Noahide community, everyone's saying, okay, well, we have to have a Jewish overseer, and that doesn't speak well when people hear that. I would say that we have a guide, someone to guide us in the direction that we need to go in. I would call it that. But ultimately, Noahides have to teach other Noahides, and this is what it's going to come down to. And we have to tell them the proper way of doing things, because in some of the books that I've read, it says we should establish our own schools, our own hospitals, our own communities, all of these different things we should be building as a group of people who are distinct from other people. Doesn't make us Jews, but it makes us people who believe in what we believe in. But when you start getting to the area of, okay, how do we worship? Well, someone says, okay, well, we go to the synagogue. But someone said to me at one of the synagogues, well, you don't want a whole bunch of Noahides whenever the Jews are sitting there waiting for a minyan to gather. They don't know whether they've got a minyan or not because all these guys sitting there. And a Noahide can't be counted in the minyan. So the question then comes, well, if Noahides are somewhere, can they have their own distinct prayer? And how do they perform that? I mean, do we do like the Jewish people? Do we wait till we got 7 Noahides in the room or something like that? I wouldn't think so. You know, I mean, see, these kind of things are all the questions that people are asking. But, you know, and I was telling somebody this morning, a yid that I was talking to, you said, don't they tell you about all this stuff and everything? I said, everything's up in the air right now. We're just learning exactly how we are supposed to be doing things. And right now, what we're doing is fleshing out some of the things that we can do, because most of us don't even know. That's the problem.
Want to say something?
Well, yeah, one of the issues is we're told we're not allowed to establish a religion or do anything, you know, we're not allowed to establish a religion. So how do we not, you know, people don't really understand what that means. How do we not establish a religion if we're
Praying together?
yeah, if we're coming up with something that we're supposed to be doing, how is that not considered starting a religion or starting a religious practice? We're not supposed to start things, but nobody really understands what that means. So what are we being told not to do?
And then when you read the divine code, it talks about not establishing a pillar of prayer like the Chabad and stuff like that, but it doesn't tell us what to do. That's the other side of it. It tells us what not to do, but it doesn't tell us what to do. And not that we need to be told what to do. It's just that, you know, some kind of guidelines would be helpful.
When it says not to establish a religion or a religious holiday or anything like that, that's exactly what it means. In other words, don't decide that, you know, every Tuesday afternoon is our special. No, whatever works on a practical level when you get together to pray, you're not making that a new religious day or something. You're not making a new Shabbos. You're saying in our community right now, Tuesday mornings work for whatever reason, and we're getting together on that day. Just like you're having a study session, and we get together Thursday evenings. We didn't make Thursday evening some sacred, holy, religious. It's the scheduling of our class. So too, you can get together. Now, of course, if you're getting together, you have to be careful. 2 days I would say to be careful of, at least, or maybe 3 days, will be Friday, Shabbos, Saturday, and Sunday, because it could look like you're trying to follow some religion. Okay, so then do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And you're going to find that there's some religions that do it then also. So as long as it's clear that you're not following any religion, it's just a matter of convenience, especially if you do it every day. If you're getting together every single day, so then, you know, that's, and what are you getting together to do? To worship, to pray to God. You're not starting or establishing your own religion. You're having an organized Noachide. Like, can you say?
Can I say this?
Yeah.
One of the things that I did early on when I started the Noach Community of Chicago is that I found a place and I set it up just like a synagogue, except we don't have the ark and all the rest of that stuff. No pictures on the wall, nothing but books on the shelves, a big table set in the middle of the room so that people can come in. And it was there in case, it's like an outpost. If a Jew wanted to come pray there, he could come pray there. If a Noahide wanted to come pray there, he could come pray there. If anyone who was monotheistic, who believes in one God, wanted to be there, they could walk into the room and there's no idols or stuff like that. But it was considered the idea of being part of an educational center to me more than anything else. And I set that up, and I think that I would like to see a place like that built. So in that place, we would have Noahide books. We would have the ability for people to come in and meet and sit down. But at some point, you'd have to do some kind of scheduling, and scheduling might start looking like another religion.
I don't know why scheduling has to look like another religion. Scheduling simply looks like
Well, Tuesday nights we're gonna have study of the Torah, and we got Rabbi so and so coming, and he's gonna be here giving a symposium. Thursday we're all gonna get together and we're gonna have a prayer. We're gonna do this every Thursday. So I mean, going back to what you said a minute ago, we got to be careful and say, okay, we're gonna do this every Thursday.
It's just scheduling. That's just being organized.
Well, can I put my 2 cents in, because I have another class at 7 o'clock. Can I barge in? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. The whole thing about gatherings and stuff with Noahites, we always have to remember where we came from, or the majority of us came from some kind of religion. Christianity is the majority of them here in the US, as far as I understand. And until each of us can get rid of that mentality of wanting to replace Christianity with another set of religious observances or religious whatevers, until we can get rid of that little bit of baggage, I don't think that we should create any kind of prayer meeting place or whatever, because we will fall into making it a religion. Because there are going to be people, and I see this, who act as if they're, like they're some kind of pastor or whatever. I think that growing up, for a Jewish person growing up from a little kid all the way up to whatever, you've got a set way of doing things. This is the way it is. Whereas we don't. We come out with a lot of baggage and a lot of ways of turning things into some kind of religious something or other. So I usually end up just telling people that our job is to make the world a better place. And if we're going to be focusing on, well, let's get our community centers together so we can have prayer every day, or pretend that we're Jewish and and do certain things, we're ignoring what we're supposed to do, is make the world a better place. And by doing that, we can't hide away in a community, because then we're we might as well be Amish or whatever. We've got to be out there. We've got to be influencing the people who are not Noahites.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think it needs to be a contradiction. I understand what you're saying about the baggage and about being careful not to fall back into that, and not just to make it a substitute and then turn it into a religion. But if in fact it's just, human nature is people want a community, even without religion. A human being wants to belong, just socially. So here too, it's easier to function when you have some kind of a support system, but it doesn't have to be exclusive of being out there and making the world into a better place.
Well, I find that, okay, so with me, I'm in Washington State. There's not a big, Noahide community here. We don't get together or anything like that. But I have joined other groups that are not Noahide, but there's something that I enjoy doing, and so they end up being a little bit of a support system for me. Like I had eye surgery yesterday, and and they contacted me and stuff and asked if I was okay, and they were going to willing to help me do whatever. And those are the kinds of people that you have that community with. They don't have to be, I don't know why we think that we have to, only be part of a Noahide community, because there's a ton of other people that we can have an influence over. And I think that's, that's part of our, kind of part of our job. But I know what you're saying. I definitely understand that.
Something to dovetail with what you're saying here is that when I met Bob Wells, Bob was looking for a Noahide community or somebody to talk to who was another Noahide. The rabbi sent him to me, okay, because I was the only other guy there. And when I set up the Noach Community in Chicago, we have we had our website, and I'm setting it up again, as well as our Facebook page. People from all over the world were saying, if I come to Chicago, can I come to your place to meet you guys? Because they want a fellowship too with people who believe like they believe. And I think that that's the important thing, is that we have a place for us exclusively. Yes. You know, I think that we need to be the Noahide faith, and we need to be out there, and we need to be coupled with our Jewish communities, but we have to have our own and distinct and separate community, because we're constantly being told that we're not Jews, but that we are a particular people with a particular belief, and that we have to adhere to that belief.
I don't think it needs to be a contradiction. Two sides to the coin. You can have such a center, and whoever wants that intensity, if I may say, they have a place. And at the same time, we could be out there, and just like you belong to any other social group, not even religious groups, whatever you belong to, and you have your positive influence there. Whether it's in politics, whether it's in sports, whatever the group is, whether it's a family chat or WhatsApp groups or whatever they are, any which way today, there's countless, all these groups. But I don't think it has to be a contradiction to having a center where you can feel that this is where someone who considers themselves to be a full-fledged Noachite, that's where I belong to. I don't think it has to be a contradiction. There's room for both. I mean, see, because it sounds like you're both, looking at a very particular way, and you're saying we need this, and you're saying no, we definitely need that, and I say it can be both.
Well, when I was talking to another group, some folks got adamant about the idea that we shouldn't be doing that, and then they started questioning the teaching credentials of the people that we're in a group with. And, even that, the Chabad guys don't know everything and all the rest of that. See, and I'm trying to stay away from people controlling the narrative for Noahides in a way that doesn't speak to what we need. And that's why if I'm with Chabad, say Rabbi Epstein and those different guys, if I'm sitting down with them, why are we sitting down and they're being a representative to teach us how to move forward if we're not creating what needs to be created for us as a group? We're just sitting down wasting time if we're not doing that, I think.
Well, we have to, I think that, if this is something that Noahides want to do all over the US, I think we have to really be careful. Yes, who are these Noahides that are teaching us? What kind of credentials do they have? Who taught them? Because we have to be careful who's teaching us, because they will come out and they may be the type that believes that we should just be Jewish light, and how do we, how do you prove that you have the knowledge? I mean, with a rabbi, they've gone through the teachings, they've gone through, they've got their Shema or whatever, and at least that they're knowledgeable, but we don't know anything about some of these Noahide teachers. But I know what you're saying, and that's I think, to me, that would be our goal, is to have knowledgeable Noahide teachers, because there's only a certain number of rabbis, and you can't find a rabbi everywhere, so
Well, let's take our rabbi, for example, Rabbi Turin. I've had people tell me, well, I don't believe what he's saying because he's not from this group or from that group, and that's where we got into this thing about the Chabad people are just out there. They're not necessarily the ones that you need to go to learn about the Noahides. And I don't like confusion. That's one of the things that I shy away from. However, if I took Bob, for example, Bob's been around the Noahide community for more than 14 years, I think now. He's got more training in the actual Noahide faith than I do. The question is, can I count on his instruction if he were to turn around and say, okay, this is the way we should do this? I would think I do, but somebody else would say, well, where did you learn that, Bob? Did you learn from a rabbi that belongs to the Noahide Center in Israel and all the rest of that right there? And my thing is, I always shied away from those kind of things when they were inviting everybody to come to Israel and stuff like that, because I didn't want to be numbered and I didn't want to be part of a clique. Okay, so I've been around Chabad for the longest and it's worked, but at the same time, you have to grow up and be an adult and move out and start to do adult things on your own, which means that as a mature Noahide, at some point, we have to say, okay, we got to go out into the world and cut out this little corner for us and start to build from there. And I've talked to Bob, I've talked to Rabbi Epstein, and, I want to see a center built here in Chicago, the Noahide Center. And I don't necessarily have to have it sitting in the middle of a Chabad center. It could be down the street somewhere or across the city. I think that that's important.
I agree. I mean, I do like the idea of having a building where people can go to maybe study or a special prayers, thing. I do kind of like that idea. I just am always worried about this slippery slope when you have new Noahides who still have that Christian, baggage and enthusiasm, and they come in and they want to change this, they want to change that because of the Christian mentality.
We see that in the other groups where they want to come in and proselytize, or they want to start setting up dogma. And
there are Noahides new Noahides that do that. I mean, I've talked to a few that they want to do this, they want to do that, and it's just like, well, you all have to be careful of what you're doing, because other people are going to follow what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you have a new religion. So yeah, it's kind of a, but yeah, I think that we can do certain things. I don't think that we should really get too religious when it comes to having set, prayer schedules and, and stuff like that. I tend to go towards Hippolytus, and that's just me, everybody can have their own way of doing things.
We're actually doing it right now. All right, here's 3 Noahides sitting here with a rabbi. And the interesting thing is the platform exists. We invite people to come. Either they come or they don't come, but at the same time, it's there for them. And that's what I'm thinking. If we have a center and it's got the books, it's got all the knowledge and all the stuff right there. I'm reminded of the school of Shema when I think about this. And that in my head, I'm sure Shem was teaching the Noahides about, about.
That's a good name to name it.
Yeah.
You remember? Okay.
But that would be, I would totally support that, that you have a rabbi come over and and all of a sudden we're talking about exactly what Rabbi Turin is talking about, I can't remember what we're called, law kings or whatever. I think that would be a wonderful way to learn in person without having like technical issues and stuff like that. I just don't want to see it turn into some kind of church.
Well, we want places for visitors too. Now look at the Noahide community that's online. They are literally having summer camps for Noahides. And they're having study classes and all kind of stuff going on. And it was in that particular group where I mentioned this, and that's where I got a little pushback but they're doing the same thing we're talking about doing already. And I don't know if we have to be careful if someone would want to say, okay, well, ours is the right one and yours is the wrong one. We don't want to say that. Now, I don't want to say that they're wrong in what they're doing, but I know that a lot of people have inquired, well, where do I go in Chicago if I'm a Noahide? Well, you got to go to the synagogue somewhere. Well, what synagogue? Oh, you can go to any synagogue. Well, who should I meet? Well, now Ask Noah has got these different names of guys in different locations that you go meet in different cities. What Rabbi Epstein and there's another rabbi, I can't think of his name, that's listed on Ask Noah, who you call if you come to Chicago. But how about having a Noahide to call?
That's what it should be.
I just got here. You're a Noahide? Yes, I am. Can you come down? You can come over to the center tomorrow. We'll meet, we'll sit down, we'll talk. And then we'll have opportunities to read whatever he wants to read. And I would think you would have every state-of-the-art book for Noahides in there. Every form of knowledge, of learning, whatever is necessary. So what I've done is I've been collecting information so that we can do something like this. But, you know, that's going to take some doing because I can't do it by myself. And I realize that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff being planned. You know, I just don't know how long it's going to take to come to fruition.
What was that, Bob?
Who's the guy in Texas?
Which one?
There's a Noahide school. He has
Rod
something.
Bryant?
Huh?
Rod Bryant is a big Noahide person down there. He's with Nativ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people are going to get mad at me, but you know, I don't really. Anyways, that's it. I'm not going to say it.
Well, I mean, that's primarily where my head is at. You know, I've been saving up my money to build this place. So, you know, eventually, if Hashem wants to see it happen, it's going to happen, you know, and if those are the seeds for it, that's a good thing. I want to see it take place. I want to see something like that. And, you know, I can't wait till we can find a place to start it, even if it's just one room where people can come to. That's enough for me. I think it should be similar to a Chabad center where everybody just comes in and it's like you're walking into a place of study. And if you want to pray, you can pray. Unless there's a minion, Jews are doing their own prayers, right?
Yeah.
So a Noahide can pray if he wants to get up and turn to the west, turn to the east and look towards the temple and pray. He should be able to do that by himself if he wants to, or as a group. That's the thing. And if we're reading it from our Siddur, like the Jews would do when they're observing, they're all sitting there reading from the same passages in the Siddur and they're praying. Shouldn't we be doing similar stuff? If we want to, I mean, not compelled. No one should be compelled to do anything, but you know, I mean, it's by choice. So,
oh, the language of the Rambam is v'yokuf, to compel.
It always starts out by choice, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's like, okay, everybody's got their book, so you might, you know, so then all of a sudden you start feeling guilty because you don't have your book with, you know,
but that's why we should have a bunch of books in there so everybody can have one.
Well, you know, and there you go. You know, you might as well be going to some Catholic church that has all their prayer books out front, you know, in each pew.
But if you look behind Rabbi Turin, right, all the synagogues I go to are just like that.
Well, yeah, they've got a ton of books. That's why we go to the rabbis to learn Torah, you know, because they just know it, you know, they know Hebrew, they know, you know, and that's, you know, that's their gift to us.
All right, to be continued.
To be continued. I have another class that I'm way late for.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Are we looking at?
That's okay.
We are 2 weeks from now. I'm not sure about. It's Lag Boimer in 2 weeks. I'm not sure, but hopefully we're looking at next week. I don't see.
Oh, and I did get the email from your wife, Rabbi.
Thank you. Good.
Well, I'm going to take care of something.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay,
All right.
bye.